This is Kristen M. Roach, and this is Craft Leftovers Live. And today I'm doing something a little bit different. It's the very first time I'm actually I'm gonna craft with you, but just like every time, just about, I craft at home, I'm gonna start with some tea. And it realized me as I was, like setting this up. One, that this is such a silly idea, but I kind of love it. And and two, I really should have just leaned into it and called this like craft tea with me, but that's just it wasn't quite in the cards. So today I'm just gonna get started brewing, and then I'm gonna get started just making some stuff. And I realized I just fogged up my my camera, but I think it's coming back. It'll be fine. I've got some lemongrass yerba mate going. I think that's one of the things about moving the time earlier that I'm really enjoying, is that I get to have a little bit of caffeine. It's to the point in my life where I really shouldn't have caffeine after about 3 o'clock. And I found sometimes in the past when I was doing those later live streams, I would I would get done and have finished my coffee at or tea, at 4 o'clock. And I was just totally amped for the rest of the evening, driving everyone nuts. So as promised, today I'm going to be working on this rather challenging mend. I tried to set up the camera so you could see this in detail, but basically what happened is all of this should be a little taller, and it should be all meeting together at the top. And it's a tube construction primarily, and I picked up all the stitches on double pointed needles. I did not knit this hat. That's not to say that if I had knit this hat that it wouldn't have unraveled. Maybe it would. I don't know. But yeah, you can see that in all its lovely drop stitch glory. And there was enough of the hat intact when I kind of initially looked at it that I realized there's decreases worked. You can see the first round of decreases right there. You can see how these two become one, which is a good indication that there's at least another round of decreases above this. Oh, that tea is smelling good. Lucy was really sad when this hat exploded, as she put it, at school. She apparently had it in her hands kind of like this and was just kind of spinning it around. No big deal. It should have been able to handle it. And the top just totally ripped out. You can also see there's maybe some thread that this is what faulted, this was the bind off edge, or what they used to kind of close up the top. So we're going to get rid of that first. She actually had a hat that was older than this from the same company that she'd had for a very long time. And it worked great. And she still has it, so we were able to revert back to that one. I don't know what Bob was doing, but Bob is my dog. and he was in the chair in my studio, and he was like rocking it back and forth. Okay, so I'm not going to actually use these needles. This was kind of just an emergency thing. What I'm actually going to do is grab some double pointeds. And I don't know if you can see this. I have this like, it looks like a bowling ball bag, but it's actually like an old carry-on luggage. And I hate to admit this, this is how all my needles are. All my double pointeds, and apparently also a giant paintbrush. I love this thing. Anyway, so pardon me while I dig around for a second. I'm hoping to find my enough double pointeds to get this thing done. I know they're in here. And this is just all part of crafting. A lot of times it's like finding the supplies. Inspired by the things you have in your space. That's too small. You know what's funny is I actually have a template that you can download and cut out, and it's like a little paper envelope that will fit your double-pointed needles and keep them all organized. I think that'll be enough. I think these are too big. These are the right size. I'm thinking these are a little too small. So I think what I'll do is I'll use 3 that are about the right size and 1 that is not. Crafting on the edge. These are Crystal Palace size US 10s. This is a Lakewood 10.5 US. And so again, like, I'm just gonna get these stitches back in order. Just kind of thing one and see where I am and try to divide it up fairly evenly. Maybe you'd like to see a little closer. Let me see what I can do about that. So for those of you who are curious, what I'm doing here is these two stitches had dropped down, and so these were on, say, like row 2, and this was still on row 1. So I'm taking that yarn that dropped out and I'm picking it back up and in this case, purling it, because I'm looking at it from the reverse stockinette side. And so those are effectively picked back up. Also notice there's quite a bit of gapping here. I don't think that it's necessarily that a stitch was dropped, just that the slack yarn really worked its way out. Looks like there's a stitch right there too. And I know partially what happened was it's like a knitting puzzle. Well, what I think potentially happened, I almost wonder, have I caught everything and could I really just like cinch this back up? Call it good. It does look like there's another dropped stitch right here. Or is that just the end that kind of unraveled? Like, what is going on? So that is the end of the yard. That looks fairly secure. Okay. I think my tea is ready. Oh, it's still too hot. So I'm actually just stretching these stitches out a bit and dropping stitches, you know, that's pretty normal. So it looks like everything's actually back on the same row. I might have gotten super lucky in that not too much was lost. I'm looking at these areas where there's more like bars. Like, is this a dropped stitch or is this just a gap? Okay. I think what I actually need now is a little bit of yarn, and this might be the simple work of just cinching this whole thing shut. And that's it. Or yeah, here is the actual yarn end, and that is still very secure. So I think that might have just been a whole lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I don't really have any yarn that specifically matches, but what I do have is I have, I think, okay, that's gonna seem really weird. I just sniffed the yarn, but legit wool has a smell. Maybe? This might be wool. I think it's wool of unknown origin. And then this, I'm fairly confident, is almost more like some acrylic blend. I believe it was pretty vintage yarn. And so you can see it's pretty close if I put these two together. And I'm going to grab a little mending basket. Now you can start to really see how I naturally craft. I just like keep piling stuff onto my desk here. Perfect. I think maybe these stitches were actually reduced one more time. So we're gonna undo what I just did. And that's totally fine. So I'm just gonna thread my double pointed needles back through here, pick these stitches back up off this yarn. I was really hoping it was just a matter of picking up a few dropped stitches, but c'est la vie. I have to attempt to reknit it using the yarn that's kind of just like in here. So bear with me while I kind of figure that out. Now, admittedly, while I've picked up many dropped stitches and I've fixed many a pattern and reknit many a thing and knit many a thing and designed many a knit thing, I've never actually done this before, truth be told, as you can probably tell. Like, what does happen when the top of your hat just like straight up unravels? There should be, in theory, enough yarn there to fix it. Where does that yarn go? How do you reclaim it? We'll figure it out. All right. So it does look like there is these two stitches, for instance. I think should be one stitch. Tricky. Okay. Because it looks like they're all knit twos together. Whoop. Losing it. It's pulling a little too tight. So these two should actually be knit together. Maybe that's what I did wrong earlier. Knitting with 3 double pointed needles, a whole new skill. I wonder how many of you all have ever been put in the position where you're having to knit with 4 double pointed needles that are not all the same size. How'd that go for you? Is it doomed to failure? Is it a smashing success? Alright, I think that's the ticket. Looking at these funny knit clusters. Okay. So what I've decided to do in my superb knitting genius is wherever there's like kind of enough slack, like right here we've got a bunch of slack, I'm actually just gonna pick all that up and I'm gonna slip knit. So I'm gonna slip, and then knit those two together using that bar yarn. Oof. And that just tightens that all back up. And it looks like this is the beginning of the row right here, so we're going to leave that alone. That's pretty stable. Here's another one of those bars. So I think these two should actually be knit together, so we're gonna... Sorry, I keep going out of frame. One more tea. We're gonna slip. We're gonna slip. Get as much of that bar yarn as we can. You can see how much slack there. It's like, yeah, there's something going on there. And then we're gonna grab that yarn to knit those two together. And that's gonna close up that hole. It seems like it's about every other, so like kind of skip over one, and then we're gonna slip, pull that extra yarn out. And the thing too here is a little bit like, is this how this was originally knit? I don't know. Does that matter? Nope. All that matters is that we're getting those holes closed, so that way my daughter's head is not cold on the playground. So now I've got this. This seems to be working out. All right, here we go, back on track. So we got that bar yarn stretched out. Look at how much is there. It's like an inch. So, going back to our stitch, we're going to slip, knit the two together by picking up that bar yarn, using it to knit those two stitches. Some of the stitches are also twisted, so I'm kind of also going along and twisting them. And there is more. All right. I think that actually gets us all the way back to around to the beginning. So now I feel like we have a much more reasonable amount of stitches to just, oh, that's not a great view. We have a much more reasonable amount of stitches to try to just close up that hole. So, back to the yarn, which now apparently is a tangled mess. There we go. not too much of a mess. Here, I'll attempt to tidy up just a little bit so it doesn't de-evolve rather quickly into a tangled mess. And here's my needle. Much better. Look at that. That's like a proper top of a hat again. It may technically need another row, but this is good. I'm going to pull these threads to the center, turn this whole business inside out, and then I will just straight up cinch that as tight as I can and do a double overhand knot. Then I'm going to cut these about 3 inches, 2.5, and I'll use these ends to I'll weave these ends in, but as I'm weaving them in, I will actually kind of close up any additional little gaps that I'm seeing and just continue to reinforce that fabric. turn down the brightness on my camera just a little bit so hopefully you can see this like white yarn. It's not the easiest to see. There we go. One hat that had turned into a tube is now a hat again. And the best thing is, I know when Lucy gets home, she is gonna just be so excited to get to wear this cute little hat again. Which then, you know, makes the whole thing worthwhile. Alright. Well, I got a couple more minutes, so I'm gonna end with a little bit of show and tell. What else is going on in my mending basket? What else is going on in my mending basket? I'm going to turn that brightness back up to normal. There we go. So this has been an ongoing project, the fluffy blankets. My daughter has 3 of these baby blankets and she really enjoys them. They're very soft, very snuggly. They're kind of the perfect little thing. But now they're almost 10 years old and they're kind of getting these spontaneous tears pretty much every time I put them in the wash, which I try to minimize. But, you know, you still gotta wash them from time to time. And so this was the fabric has become so delicate that it's really a challenge to mend this without continually tearing the fabric. Normally, my advice to anyone else would be to just use interfacing on this, you know, like kind of like a cloth interfacing on the back, and then sew into that to stabilize it. She won't hear of it. I think eventually what I'm going to have to do is like graft them together or something. But for now, I'm trying. So it's a little bit of a Frankenstein approach, and that it's just a lot of stitches. I'm not sure if you can see that. So it was like a L-shaped tear. And so I kind of stitched around the entire thing pretty far from the tear, and then I'm essentially darning it back together. And that seems to be what works best for this kind of thing. And I'm just using an embroidery hoop, but you'll notice I have quite a bit of play in the fabric. It's not pulled tight because that would actually continue to damage the fabric more. And I'm using a really fine cotton thread, not a utility thread, because that too was just too much. So we'll see how that one goes. I don't know if that'll be done by the next time, or maybe it will. We'll see. Now, the other thing in my mending basket is these socks. feel like I wrote a pattern for these socks. They're like toe-up knee socks. They're very long. Each one took a skein of yarn. and they are my favorite socks, hands down. And so I've already darned them several times. This one probably soon is about to wear through right here in the toe, but it's not there yet. But its pair is actually in just about the shape. You can see where it's prone to wear. And with toe-up socks, I did like an afterthought heel where you basically just put in, you just knit some waist yarn in, and then keep on knitting. And then you pick up those stitches and you put in the heel after the fact. And so it's not, I didn't reinforce it with nylon or anything, and you can tell that because the other socks that I knit from the top down, I do a slip knit pattern that kind of naturally reinforces the heel. And this uses like kind of more traditional heel style where you do a heel flap. Anyway, so definitely like back of the shoe, the heel, the pad of my foot, and look at that toe. Oh my goodness, I just really wrecked that one. So what I'm doing is I actually have a piece of cardboard in here because I didn't even want to use like a darning egg. I just wanted something nice and flat. And I'm just doing a really traditional darning where I wove the yarn in and out all the way around with some scrap. It's actually really cute. Let's see if I have it here. It's this like vintage Mending yarn. And so I used that, and I'm just going back and forth like crazy. And then I'll kind of redo the same here. At some point, I'm thinking what's going to end up having to happen is, and this is so scary, but to like cut the toe off, pick up the stitches, and re-knit the toe. But the issue is that the knit stitches go from the toe up, so what I might actually do is kind of the opposite, where I'll re-knit a toe and then do a Kitchener stitch to graft it all together, which is like a sewn knit stitch. Anyway, yeah, so that's what's in there. So that's like my mending projects I got going on. There's more, but those are like the ones I'm actually trying to do. And then this is exciting. Look at this. I am getting down to the easy part of a pair of socks. I don't know how long it's been since I've finished a pair of socks, so this is pretty exciting. I think I showed this to you a while ago, and I was like finishing the first one or something like that on a past live stream. But so progress is being made, so that's pretty exciting. Yeah, so that's what I got going on in my mending basket. This was a really nice pause in my week to get to come craft, and a great opportunity to just have a cup of tea, enjoy a really cold afternoon inside, and thanks for sharing it with me. If you'd like to get notice of when I do this again, or for when I live stream and talk more about like business topics and that kind of thing, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you're mending, that kind of thing, or if you have any helpful advice like, oh, you could have totally used this other stitch for that. I would really appreciate it. honestly, I don't feel that even at this point in my life or this point in my crafting that I'm an expert. I still like to think of myself as an enthusiast who's always assuming that everyone has more to teach me than I have to teach them. So, thanks for letting me share what I know with you today. Until next time. Bye.